Stay updated with what businesses are doing in the Middle East and find new strategies to grow your business. I am Ayman Aitani, Business Growth Specialist, and this is BizWrap. Today, if you're in retail, you need to listen to the advice of our guest, Hani Naja, a partner at Baker McKenzie, Habib and Mulla. We will talk about how a distributor in the UAE can become more relevant to the global originator of the product or service. I know it's a mouthful. Hani and I are going to hash it out in full details. Ask your questions in the comments or by direct message. Plus, Kitopi raises $450 million funded by SoftBank. That is cash raised, not a valuation. So that puts Kitopi as another unicorn from the Middle East. We also have Deliveroo opening up in Dubai, its largest cloud kitchen in the world. How many more dark kitchens are needed? How much are we consuming? And what does this mean to physical restaurants? And we're 80 days away from Expo 2020, and we're super excited. The French astronaut Thomas Pesquet posted pictures of the palm from the ISS, from the space station, and mentioned he'll be involved in the French pavilion at the Expo. We'll discuss that in more details. Plus, the UAE's Hope probe is circling Mars and has sent recently the first global images of Mars in the far ultraviolet range. It provided scientists with new information on the planet. The team's goal is to obtain terabytes of data and information on the red planet. Lastly, in a retro bit, we're going to talk about the first gaming consoles that I remember. And we're going to talk about yours. I'm Ayman Aitani, and this is BizWrap. Cloud kitchens are a growing business. The concept is simple. The restaurant rents an industrial kitchen. So not like the kitchen in your home and mine, an industrial full-fledged kitchen. And the objective is solely to produce food for delivery and potentially takeout, mostly delivery. There's no long-term rent in prime locations. So usually restaurant owners have to obsess about where, and it's a big commitment. You have to pay for 3 to 5 years of rent commitment, irrelevant of your business, irrelevant of the economy and the rents going up and down. You have to pay expensive decoration. You have to have staffing, front-end staffing. So cloud kitchens are a more cost-effective way for a restaurant to service new locations. So they can deliver in many other locations and without opening up an actual physical location. So Kitopi is UAE-based, and it provides ingredients, areas for cooking meals, delivery options, and he just raised $450 million in funding by SoftBank's Vision Fund 2. This is the first SoftBank investment in a UAE company. SoftBank has invested in Alibaba, Uber, WeWork, and so many more. Next, we're going to talk about Deliveroo opening its largest cloud kitchen in the world here in Dubai. If you want, you can wait. So dark kitchens, with Deliveroo, they opened up their largest dark kitchen in Dubai in Hessa Street, not very far from where I am now. I remember randomly coming across the first cloud kitchen in 2017. It was in JLT. It was a weekend. I was with some friends. Hi Faisal, if you're watching. I was catching up with them over a meal. We parked our car at JLT. So I walked out of the car and I saw a bunch of motorcycles, Deliveroo motorcycles. So I did like any good friend would do is I ditched my friends, I let them have breakfast on their own, and I focused on what I saw around me. I prepared the videos, I did my business questions and all of that. And what I ended up doing once that video was there explaining the concept, I also spoke with other business owners that I know who are restaurant owners. And those restaurant owners, that's 2017, right? 5 years ago, pre-COVID, delivery might not have been the primary mode of revenue for them, so it's a side thing. And when I spoke with those restaurant owners, they had a bunch of questions for me. What does that mean for my business, and how do I expand, and what's the licensing, and what do you mean I don't have to commit long-term rent and things like this? And they also asked me, you prepared this video, you personally yourself, and why? And my answer to them is the same answer that it was today, that then and today. It's because I can. I'm in a position where I'm in the front line of businesses. I'm very active operationally with business owners, helping them grow. And I see the problems and I see the solutions and so on. So when I come across concepts, I like to create business content like I have done so far and with you here today, to talk more about what the real business is behind the scenes and how things work. I'm going to show you a small glimpse of it, and then we're going to move on to our next topic.
In Dubai, they've done this recently. This is from the National from October 6. From Deliveroo today came with a bag labeled Deliveroo Editions. So I looked more into it. It also came with more information on this.
Expo 2020 is 80 days away. The French astronaut Thomas Pesquet, he is on board the International Space Station. He shared some images of the Palm from space with a hint of his Expo 2020 participation, and then later on he clarified more formally that he'll be participating at the French pavilion of the Expo. The Palm being seen from space has always been exciting ever since its concept and inception, and still is today. What pavilions are you excited to visit? I strongly recommend that you look at the Expo 20's multiple pavilions and have a plan on what to visit. I was able to visit the Sustainability Pavilion. It opened up briefly in February for a couple of months for visitors to come and see, and it's a lovely part of this. It's a full new city that was built, and an overall great structure. I definitely encourage that you go and visit the Expo once it opens. Next, we talk about the Hope Probe. So this next story is about terabytes of data flying in from space, from Mars all the way down to Earth, thanks to the UAE's Hope Probe. On the 4th of March, we received the first images of Mars from the Hope Probe that's circulating Mars. And on the 30th of June, very recently, for the first time in history, there are images from Mars about something called the discrete auroras. I'm not fully qualified to explain what this means, but what I'm excited about is the huge feat of the Hope Probe circling Mars, as well as the huge terabytes of data beaming down from Mars. So you think about the data that you consume on a day-to-day from your phone and the gigs of data, you're talking about thousands of gigs of data that you send all the way through space all the way down to Earth. Next, we talk about retail in the UAE with our guest. Are you a distributor of products or services in the UAE? Your relationship with the global principal, i.e. the foreign originator of the product or service, has changed in 2021, with the UAE allowing full foreign ownership. Our guest Hani knows the struggles of retailers and helps them navigate the changing legal and business landscape. Hani, thank you for being with us today.
Hi, Aman, how are you?
If we can start by defining who's who. Retailer, the global principal, the foreign originator, who's who and who does what?
So, look, a typical distribution structure starts with obviously the principal or what you're referring to as the originator. That's the manufacturer of the product or the initial provider of the service. And there's a local distributor in a region or in a country. If it's regional, usually we call them a master distributor. and that company would handle a region of the world, and then appoints sub-distributors in each country. The UAE players are mostly both massive distributors and local distributors, because Dubai is and the UAE in general is a hub, so you can find a lot of companies who are running the Middle East business or the Middle East and Africa business out of the UAE. The distributor is the one that is in touch with the consumer directly, whether it's a consumer as individual or if it's B2B. But that's the company or the entity that is facing basically the user of the product or the service.
So after the 1st of June, which is very recent, the global principal can come to the UAE and set up their own business with 100% foreign ownership. They can do business directly in the country. That creates opportunities and threats, right, for all sides. So you have different sides here, opportunities and threats for each. Can you help clarify the opportunities and threats for both sides?
Absolutely. So look, the UAE has been trying to work around the foreign restrictions that historically were applicable to foreign investors. As most people know, whether you're a small business or whether you're a multinational company, up until June 1st, you needed your company to be owned at least by 51 at the level of 51% by a local national or a company held by local nationals. That structure was prohibiting some foreign companies to come directly to the market. So they instead appointed distributors or they appointed franchisees. You see that, for example, a lot in the restaurant business, which basically gives them access to the market, but without going direct. Now, when you remove the element of foreign ownership, where foreign companies, say for example, a US manufacturer of product can now directly set up in the country without any concern of partnership. Partnering with anybody in a JV model, whether it's because of statutory or legal requirements or because of the need of the business, is usually a big decision. However, coming to the market alone is a much easier decision for any foreign multinational company. So when you make it easier for them to come, now they start thinking, do I really need the distributor? Can I come in? Can I cut the middleman and go directly to the customer like I'm doing in my home country? All these questions now are being asked both by the multinationals and also the local distributors, who are thinking, is this going to kick me out of the game, or can I still be relevant?
So what can a UAE-based business do to become more relevant? There are business models in place now. They've been in place for decades. And with the change of the law, there's those business models will likely be affected and need to somehow adapt and change. So what can they do there's a relevance issue, there's territory issues, there are full business models that need to be protected and evolved.
Absolutely. So now what we call the barriers to market are now removed, right? So and it's always about the bottom line of the foreign entity. What does can the foreign entity make more money without the distributor? They're always going to ask that question. So for the distributor to survive that change, they need to remind the foreign company that we add value, and it's not necessarily cheaper to go around us or eliminate us from the chain, because we add local market know-how. That's immense. That's a huge added value that the distributor brings to the table. They know their market, they know their customers, they are familiar with the culture and the geography of the country. They've also have been, think about, for example, a typical retail, selling of products, clothes or electronics or whatever. The distributor has the relationship, for example, with the mall. They have built that long-term relationship of a tenant and a landlord. They also have the relationship with the regulators. So, for example, if you have a regulated product, if you're a electronic device, or if you're a medical device, you as a distributor hold that registration with the regulator. And also, you might be one of the lucky ones who have structured the agreement with the principal historically in a way that protects you from that. So you agreed to exclusivity in a particular region, the UAE, for example, or the Middle East, and in that exclusivity it works also against the principal. So I represent clients from both sides of the structure, and a lot of the principals, for example, who want to end the relationship with the distributor simply cannot, because the agreement has been set up in a way that gives a lot of rights for the distributor, because at the moment of creating the relationship, they made sure that they have maintained the exclusivity of the market, even against the principal.
How do online businesses come into play? Because when I have discussions with wholesalers and distributors and so on, they talk to me saying, "Ayman, look, we want to go online, we want to sell this, we want to do our products and so on." And then I ask them, what is your, there are written engagements that you have in place today. Do those written engagements allow you or enable you to sell online? And do your relationships, with other distributors, if you're going straight to consumer, what does that mean? So usually they give me a straight answer about, yes, we don't want to anger the existing lines of business that we have. We don't want to go against them and so on. So they have a clear answer for that. But when I ask them, what do you have in writing with, your originator or others about this? That's when they look at each other in the meet. It's always the case. They look at each other in the meeting. Do you know? We have to check. We're not sure. This is always the case. Yeah. So tell me more about that, please.
Yeah. So look, to simplify it, think about online. A minute ago, we talked about demarcation of territories, right? And whether you have exclusivity or you have the right to sell in a particular country or city or emirate. If we're looking at the UAE, online is just another country. It's another jurisdiction. So have you agreed with your principal that you are going to sell online? If your contract dates more than 10, 15, 20 years, it probably doesn't say anything about it. So is it a yes or a no? If it doesn't say, if your agreement with your principal says nothing, does that mean that you are allowed to sell in the country? Typically, unless the agreement has other things, yes, you can sell online, because again, the end consumer is in the country. However, that goes both ways. Can the principal also sell online, because the territory is not very well defined? So the best thing to do is to very clearly agree on whether online sales are included in my territory as a distributor. And over the past 10 years, all the principals have been very, very clear on, all the distribution agreements that I've seen in the last 10 years have a specific paragraph on online business and whether that is included or not. And typically it would not be included, because the principal wants to control kind of the website, the how the transactions are being made. Now, sometimes because of logistical issues or payment issues, they will still have to fulfill the sale using the local distributor. And in this case, it's a win-win situation. The transaction is done with the principal, but the delivery and is done by the distributor, which where they can also take their cut of the transaction.
Duty-free is also considered to be a territory similar to online sales?
In one way, it's actually easier to define it as a territory than online, because online there's an overlap, obviously, with the end consumer. Duty-free is definitely a separate jurisdiction where different, I wouldn't say just laws, but different tax regimes apply. So we see that a lot in luxury retail, where they want to maintain that exclusivity of duty-free, where the principal wants to do that, because they issue a lot of special editions that are for travel only. You see that a lot in the airport. And they want that SKU to be outside of the control of the local distributor. So again, if I'm a distributor, and if I'm a distributor in Dubai, where one of the biggest, most active airports in the world, even during the pandemic, maybe I want to include the duty-free in my scope, because that's a huge business.
One thing I look at with many of the distributors and wholesalers in the UAE, and Saudi Arabia as well, is I always point out that they're reliant on products that come from abroad. There's an owner of it, there's a relationship, as you mentioned here, and so on.
Mm-hmm.
So I always talk to them about having them with long-term building their own brand, their own product. So they could. There are many, providers now globally where they could provide a white-labeled version that you can have your own brand.
Mm-hmm.
The disadvantage there, obviously, is you have to build the brand from scratch. It's going to take you 6, 7, 8, 9 years. But usually, a lot of these businesses are there for 10, 20, 30 years. There's usually a family involved and so on. So there is room there for this. But there's this investment. There's this hesitation there. So, but this product came and sells. It sells. I put it in the market. It sells today. I need to wait until this one sells, and so on. What advice do you have there for those who might be a little bit hesitant on actually making that investment in their own parallel brand or product, so that in case the relationship goes sour or there are changes in law and how it works, you have room. You've built your own partial business. Instead of going down to zero, you go down to 30%, 35%, whatever it might be.
Yeah. We're seeing that a lot in, I would say, in the foodstuff industry. So I'm seeing a lot of local and regional brands with that. I think we're a bit behind on clothing or jewelry or more luxury fashion, but I'm seeing a lot of that happening in the foodstuff industry, where a lot of local players are now becoming more active. My advice is build your company as if it's going to become the next, the next multinational. You build it the right way from the beginning, and by that I mean think 10 steps ahead about how to put together your arrangement with your manufacturer. Again, if I'm getting a white label, I want my manufacturer to be exclusive to me, or to at least not provide similar products to a competitor in my jurisdiction. So that's from the supplier side, but also from the territory side. If I'm appointing distributors in neighboring countries, making sure that that relationship is very tight, and also controlling competing products. Now, how do I encourage them? I encourage them by saying that you have the knowledge. If you have been distributing a product or a service for multiple decades, the industry probably and the market more than your principal. So you have, you're already halfway there. Obviously, there's the financial piece to it, but in terms of your know-how and developing your own brand and basically standing alone as now becoming a principal, not only a distributor, is really, really important for your survival. And that same advice I would have given even before the amendment of the foreign direct investment law, because the move from a distributor model into a direct sale model has been going on even before the amendment of the foreign direct investment law, because foreign companies have seen how much the market has grown. The Middle East and North Africa and Africa in general is now becoming a target market for that. And there's always more money for me as a multinational company if I go direct. So going direct was accelerated by the foreign direct investment law, but it's happening. So for all you distributors who have all your business plan built only on being a distributor, start thinking about what am I gonna do to adjust to what's going on. Am I gonna make myself more attractive to my same principal to become their JV partner? And we're seeing that a lot, by the way. A lot of the traditional distributors are now joint venturing with their principal to become a one company in the territory.
Hani, you've been on both sides of the table. I'm trying to think of, there are scenarios now, and what are broad guidelines we can say? So if I'm a large business out of Europe or the US, and I'm looking to get established and started, I've had business in the UAE for a while, on and off, but I'm looking to do things on my own. What are 3 or 4 key things for them to look out for when they come here? That's one set, and then the other set, if I've been doing business with one primary one and multiple smaller global originators that I'm working with, and I'm distributing in the country, what are things that I need to look out if I want to dust off my old contract and look into it and check what are things that I need to look for specifically, and potentially strengthen my position on?
Great question. So if I'm a multinational company and I was doing my business through a distributor or a franchisee in the region, and now I want to go direct. First of all, I need to check, how did I appoint those distributors or franchisees? Are they agents? Are they distributors? Are they exclusive? Have they registered this agreement with any authority that makes it very difficult to terminate or to amend? So first of all, I need to study what do I have currently on the ground. I remember a situation, I think more than 10 years ago, with a car manufacturer, an Asian car manufacturer, who came here, appointed a distributor, built a showroom with the distributor, and when the cars started shipping, the customs stopped the shipment because the brand is registered with an old agent 25 years ago. And they didn't do, it costs 300 dirhams to check whether you have an agent or not, a registered agent. So they saved on those 300 dirhams, and now they had to deal with a ship full of cars at customs. By the way, that brand was delayed for a few years afterwards until they resolved the issue with their old agent, who was appointed, in the 80s, and then aborted. But they did the contract. So again, understand what's going on the ground. Two, really look at your distributor and how they can add value to your, even if you go direct, even if you go 100%, can I still use the distributor as my JV partner, as a contractor of mine that can provide me manpower or the know-how, or maybe facilitate my new coming into the country, because the distributor has built my business. So a lot of multinationals think, you know what, I'm just gonna take them out of the picture and come direct. That company has built my brand into the country. So I'm not talking about loyalty here, but it's also from a business perspective, look at your distributor and what they have done for you. And finally, I think it's very important also to understand next steps in terms of legislations and lay of the land on where I'm going. I need to think about HR, about the labor regulations, about social security, about taxes, and because that all, as a principle, I push that down to the distributor when I'm in a distribution relationship. But if I'm going direct, I need to do a full study of that. So that's on the multinational side. On the distributor side, I need, again, to make myself relevant when this change is coming. And again, I need to highlight how the know-how will save money for the principal, how I have relationship on the ground with landlords, with regulators, and with other stakeholders, and how I can control things like online sales and logistics as well, because I have been traditionally controlling the supply chain.
Hani, what I'm thinking when you're talking about this is, doing business is hard. It always is, always continues to be, right? So, and this is even before tech changes and COVID changes and so on. There are so many things to look at from an agreement and structure and revenue. So there's this opportunity down the line that you see and you touch, but you have to jump through so many hoops to get there. Given the 300 dirham example you gave as well, just there's so much to be done.
There's definitely so much to be done, but again, I see the UAE as one of the best places to do that. And generally the region is really becoming a much easier. I mean, I'm just comparing now to 10 years ago. You can now, using your phone, renew your license or make an application. Now, you can basically book your company name in 5 minutes. So that there's a lot of I would say admin work that has been removed. Obviously, there's still the work that you need to do as an entrepreneur or as an established business to grow. Nobody said it's going to be easy, But I think, if I'm an entrepreneur, I think this is a great time for me to take advantage of the changes that are coming. As you said, there's challenges and opportunities. I'm very optimistic usually, and I see the opportunities in a much brighter light.
One last thing on this, and which is characteristic of the UAE, I like how the consumer protection law has been expanded to include e-commerce providers as well. Can you talk to us more about that before we move on to the next section?
Absolutely. So the UAE has amended its consumer protection law very recently, and I think it was a great amendment because it clarified something that we have always advised on without being 100% sure. Online sales were never discussed in the old consumer protection law because it actually predates the internet. So it wasn't even envisaged. There was the only thing that was envisaged is a traditional sale. You come to the store, you sell, you take something, you know the policy, and you go home. The return policy, the exchange policy, the maintenance policy. The new law has introduced a whole set of regulations specific to online sales that take into consideration technology, that take into consideration that the seller of the product might not be in the country, and it also brings them or brings the responsibility and the liability of the product to that seller, even if they are outside of the country. It also describes what platforms, what's the role of the platform, what's the liability of the platforms in relation to that, and whether they can shift that liability directly to the manufacturer or they have to face it themselves. In general, as a general rule, and that message is for aggregators, for platforms, for distributors. Even if you're not manufacturing the product, from a local perspective, you are the first point of contact for any authority, any consumer issue. You are the first point of contact. Whether you can transition that liability to someone else or not, it's a different question, but you will be the first person to be contacted.
Summarize on this, the key aspects are business relevance, demarcation of territory, exclusivity arrangement, and the consumer protection obligation. Hani,
absolutely.
I'm moving on to the rapid fire questions. We finished the business questions. Now we're moving on to more personal questions. All right, I'm going to ask you serious questions. Just answer back with whatever first comes to mind. Doesn't have to be very long. Professionally, was COVID a blessing or a curse?
Blessing.
Lish, why?
Because why? First of all, because I spent a little bit more time with my family while still be able to perform at the same level in terms of hours, at least.
And, we're all forced to spend time with our families
here, so I cannot complain.
What about personally? How was COVID a blessing or a curse?
Absolutely a blessing from a relationship perspective. There was a lot of stress. I'm a very social person. I like coming to the office. I like meeting people. To be honest, I missed meeting my colleagues the most. So that's what I missed during COVID. But look, the blessing of seeing my kids grow up in front of me when as opposed to being in the office for 15 hours is definitely a good thing.
Are you able to go back to that though? Because I promised myself I'm gonna find the balance. I'm gonna work it out, and now COVID is lifting. It's a gradual lift, but it's lifting, and back to old habits and long hours and meetings.
The long hours never stopped. The long hours never stopped, Ayman. Even at home. Look, again, demarcation of territories at home where it was very difficult to understand when is work and when is personal, when you can play with your kid and when you need to take a call. So it was very difficult to manage, but I think we figured it out. We kind of, and it helps when your wife is also working, so that you can see how other people do it in front of you and learn from them.
What do your friends or parents or grandparents think you do at work?
In Arabic, أتفلسف. It's just being. Look, I hope they think I help people solve problems. That's what I hope they think about me.
What is one thing you love about legal advisory, and what is one thing you hate about legal advisory?
The one thing I hate is sometimes it might tend to be repetitive or too admin or too paper related. But I'm one of the lucky lawyers who work in industries that are very exciting. I focus on sectors like technology, healthcare, and retail, and there's a lot of action going on there. So I love that that piece a lot. And I also, like to one of the things I love about legal advice is that you can really help people, and I think that's kind of what you learn on day one of your law school. And I still, even in the corporate setting, I still like to do it.
Speaking of school, what did you think you were going to do after graduating?
I actually were, all through my law school, I was leaning towards diplomacy and going into the Ministry of Foreign Affairs and all of that. And I've actually did apply to the Foreign Ministry to become a consulate and an ambassador. And then at that point, it was July 2006. There was a war in Lebanon, and I had to abort that. And then I ended up, changing gears. But when I was in law school, I always wanted to go into diplomacy.
My last question to you is: what is the most bizarre legal question you got from a friend or acquaintance? It's like, Hani, I'm asking for a friend. What was that? That's an interesting one. I think it's not very. It wasn't a very nice question, actually. It was about a death of an employee of one of my clients, who they needed to basically, who was supporting her family in Europe, and with two parents that are basically immobile. They were completely sick, and that employee unfortunately got hit by a car here in Dubai, and the company really wanted to send the money to the parent, but just couldn't, because there was a lot of legal work to be done from a UAE perspective. So that call was very strange, because again, I'm a corporate lawyer and I don't deal with that. Luckily, we helped them get their money out of the country in a couple of days. So again, it was a shame that it's a kind of a bad situation, but at least legal advice was helpful to the parents. So when I'm building business processes for customers, and there's the saying of, what if Ayman gets hit by a bus, what happens in this part? It's a literal. So it's not just a saying.
No, absolutely. You have to think, and it actually made me think a lot about how to plan ahead. So and that applies to our original discussion for distributors and principals. You need to plan ahead, and FDI is coming. The principals are coming into the countries. If I'm a distributor, I need to think about how can I stay relevant.
I'm moving on next to my retro piece about the first gaming console. So before I do that, I wanted to ask you: do you remember the first gaming console? You remember which was the first one?
Absolutely, Atari all the way.
Yes. I spoke on Atari a couple of episodes back. For me, it was the Game & Watch. Nintendo used to do something called a Game & Watch. It was a console that you open up and you play with. And of course, the Atari, we spent so many hours, and our parents complained that it's rotting our minds, and we're not going to get anywhere with that. And here we are today. Hani, I want to thank you very much for your advice to retail businesses and for your openness, talking about your personal questions. Thank you very much for that. Thank you for being guest with us today.
Thank you so much, Ayman. Have a great day.
Thank you, Hani. Next, our retro. Do you remember your first gaming console? Did it run one game, multiple games? I had something called a Game & Watch. It was one of Nintendo's earlier games. It was a Donkey Kong one. Whenever I see this image, it brings warm memories. I still have that in my drawer at home because not the original one I had. I was traveling once in Paris for work, and I found it in an old novelty store, and I bought it for 50 euros. There was this, and there was another white one called Oil Changer or something like this. So this is around 1982. That's when it first came out. I had it a few years later. So all of this get me thinking about old games and what we've done with them. And Atari, Hani just mentioned that. So Pac-Man, Pitfall, Space Invaders, Frogger, all of those types of games with a cartridge that used to use. And from a portability perspective, the Game Boy was a gaming console I spent a lot of time with, specifically Tetris, Terminator 2. So those were two I spent. Super Mario, Legend of Zelda, but mostly it's Tetris and Terminator 2. You can also tell a lot by the age. So my age, Hani's age, the age of people listening, if some of these click or they don't click. So based on what gaming console you remember, you can find out the age. Think of BuzzFeed and the questions that they asked of, what's the oldest gaming console you remember, and then they would determine that. That's it for me for today. Thank you for tuning in. Thank you, Hani, for being a great guest and for the information. And I will see you all in 2 weeks. In the meantime, happy Eid.
All right, the episode is over. Thank you for watching.